The world of Turkish drama has just exploded again, and this time, it's because of something Yaman finally said after months of silence. For years, fans have been waiting, speculating, wondering if he would ever speak about Demet Özdemir again. And now, he finally did, but what he said was so harsh, so unexpected, that it left everyone speechless. It all began during a live interview in Italy, where Can has been promoting his new international projects. The host, known for asking bold questions, casually mentioned Demet's name while talking about his early career. At first, Can smiled politely, but then, his expression changed. He leaned back, paused for a moment, and said something that stunned the audience. People like to romanticize the past. But not everything that shines is gold. Some things look beautiful only from far away. The studio went silent. The interviewer looked surprised and tried to ask if he was referring to Demet, but Can just gave a small smile and said, "You can interpret it however you want." Within minutes, clips of that moment started circulating online. Fans around the world lost their minds. Was this his way of finally addressing what happened between them? Was he implying that his story with Demet wasn't as perfect as everyone believed? On social media, the reactions were explosive. "Why would he say that now?" one fan wrote. "Does he regret everything?" asked another. Others defended him, saying he was simply tired of being linked to a past that never stops following him. But what made it even more intense was Demet's silence. She didn't react, she didn't post, she didn't even like or unlike anything. And that silence, cold, composed, and mysterious, made the whole thing even more powerful. Because when Can said those words, it wasn't just about nostalgia or interviews. It sounded personal. It sounded like something that came from deep inside, from someone who had once cared too much. For years, people saw them as the perfect couple on and off screen, chemistry, connection, and that spark that felt too real to be acting. But now, after hearing those words, fans started to wonder if behind the cameras there was also pain, disappointment, and unresolved emotions. As the video continued to go viral, even European media picked up the story. Italian magazines printed headlines like, "Can Yaman break silence about his ex-partner?" and "Fans are shocked by his tone." While Turkish outlets responded with, "Can Yaman's cold words about Demet ignite new controversy?" It wasn't just another gossip headline anymore. It was a storm, and the world could feel that something had changed forever. The interview clip spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere, on Instagram Reels, Twitter trends, YouTube reaction videos, and even international gossip outlets. The hashtag Can Yaman interview started trending in Turkey, Italy, and Spain at the same time. The public was divided. Some applauded him for finally being honest. Others accused him of being cold, ungrateful, and even disrespectful toward Demet Özdemir, the woman fans had once believed was his true love. One comment on Twitter read, "You don't talk about someone you once loved that way. Even silence would have been better." Another said, "He's just human, maybe he's tired of being haunted by the past." But the tone of Can's words was too sharp to ignore. Even Italian tabloids, which usually praised him endlessly, began running dramatic headlines like, "Can Yaman shocks fans with cold statement about his past love." And the Turkish press went even further. Was this Can Yaman's revenge against Demet Özdemir? It was clear, his words had opened old wounds. Yet in the middle of all the chaos, Demet remained silent. She went on with her schedule, appearing at a charity event in Istanbul the next evening. But even there, the reporters couldn't resist asking her about the viral interview. "Demet, have you heard what Can said about you?" one journalist shouted as she walked the red carpet. Demet paused for a split second, smiled faintly, and simply said, "I wish him peace, truly." Just 6 words. But those 6 words hit harder than any statement. The elegance, the restraint, the calmness, it was everything the internet didn't expect. Within minutes, hashtag I wish him peace started trending. Fans flooded her comments with messages like, "She won with grace." That's the difference between silence and maturity. She didn't need to defend herself, she just ended the debate. Entertainment journalists called it the most powerful non-response in celebrity history. One Turkish columnist wrote, "Demet Özdemir just taught the world that sometimes, dignity speaks louder than pride." Meanwhile, Yaman, perhaps realizing how massive the reaction had become, stopped posting for a few days. No stories, no gym updates, no promotional photos. Nothing. But the silence only made things louder. Paparazzi began following him even more closely, waiting for the next move. Some fans speculated that he regretted what he said. Others believed he meant every word, but hadn't expected it to blow up like this. Either way, one thing was certain: after that night, nothing between them would ever feel the same again. After days of silence, the atmosphere around Yaman had become suffocating. Everywhere he went, cameras followed. Every look, every expression, every tiny move was analyzed by the public. People wanted to know, was he sorry? Did he mean it? Or was this his true opinion all along? According to a close source quoted by an Italian magazine, Ken had become more withdrawn than usual after the viral backlash. "He's reflecting a lot," the insider revealed. He didn't expect his words to sound that harsh. He thought he was just being honest, but he knows now that honesty can hurt. Meanwhile, Demet Özdemir was thousands of miles away, in Istanbul, filming her new series. But her name was still trending in Italy, Spain, and even Brazil. Every article about Ken ended up mentioning her, every headline used her face next to his. And then, just when the storm seemed to calm again, Demet posted something new. It was a photo, a quiet sunset over the Bosphorus. No filters, no glamour. Just a single line written beneath it: "The truth doesn't need to be repeated, it survives on its own." The moment it went online, fans went wild. They flooded her page with heart emojis and messages like, "She's talking about him again. This is elegance turned into art. She doesn't clap back, she inspires." Turkish and Italian gossip outlets immediately picked up the story. Some said it was her way of closing the chapter with grace. Others thought it was a direct message to Ken, reminding him that the truth, whatever it was, didn't need defending. On Twitter, one viral comment perfectly captured the collective feeling: "She doesn't scream, she doesn't accuse, she just reminds everyone that she never lied." Meanwhile, Ken remained invisible. He skipped an event he was supposed to attend in Rome, citing personal reasons. But the press wasn't buying it. Some claimed he was avoiding questions about Demet. Others suggested he wanted to stay out of the drama completely. For the fans, it didn't matter who was right or wrong anymore. This wasn't about gossip, it was about two people who had shared something real, something that still lingered between the lines. Because no matter how far apart they seemed, their stories still echoed each other: her sunset, his silence, her calmness, his regret. It was like watching two hearts talk in a language only they could understand. By the end of that week, even the biggest tabloids started to soften their tone. One headline in a major Italian paper read, "They may not speak, but their hearts are still in conversation." And for fans around the world, that felt like the truest thing ever written. After weeks of tension, silence, and cryptic posts, the world had stopped expecting any more surprises. Fans assumed that both had said all they needed to say, through silence, through words, through emotions left between the lines. But then, out of nowhere, Yaman broke his silence again. He appeared on the red carpet of a film festival in Rome, wearing a simple black suit and a distant smile. The crowd shouted his name, flashing cameras surrounded him, and as usual, reporters tried to sneak in questions about Demet. At first, he ignored them. But then, one journalist asked directly, "Ken, do you regret the words you said about Demet Özdemir?" Ken stopped walking. For a brief moment, he looked down, then raised his eyes and said calmly, "I don't regret being honest. But I regret if honesty hurt someone who didn't deserve it." The red carpet fell silent. Even the reporters froze. It was the first time he had shown a glimpse of emotion, a shadow of vulnerability behind his confident persona. And in that one sentence, the tone changed completely. Within hours, clips of his statement flooded the internet. Fans wrote comments like, he finally admitted it. He still cares, you can hear it in his voice. That wasn't anger, that was regret. Turkish news outlets ran headlines like, "Can Yaman's heartfelt words for Demet Özdemir melt hearts worldwide?" While Italian magazines described it as the most human moment in his career. And then, as if destiny was still playing its game, Demet reacted, not with a press statement, but with one final post. A black and white picture of a handwritten note. The note read, "We all make mistakes. But some memories are too pure to ever fade." No tags, no context, no location, but everyone knew what it meant. It was forgiveness without words, a soft closure to a long, complicated story. The fans were in tears. The comments section turned into a sea of hearts and crying emojis. After everything, she still speaks with kindness. This is how you end a story, with grace. She forgave him, and that's the most beautiful thing she could have done. For a few days, both names, Yaman and Demet Özdemir, trended together again. Not because of scandal, not because of gossip, but because of a quiet act of humanity. Later that week, an entertainment journalist in Italy wrote something that perfectly summed it up. They may not love each other anymore, but they've learned to respect what they once were. And maybe that was the real ending, not a dramatic confrontation, but an understanding that time doesn't erase love, it only changes its shape. Months later, when Ken was asked about Demet again during a press junket, he smiled softly and said, "We shared something unforgettable. I hope she's happy, truly happy." The interviewer tried to dig deeper, but Ken didn't add anything more. He didn't need to. Because everyone could see it, the peace in his eyes, the acceptance in his voice. As for Demet, she's been glowing in her latest projects, radiating the calm of someone who has finally moved on. But sometimes, when fans comment old photos of the two together, she doesn't delete them. She just lets them be. And that, perhaps, is the most telling sign of all, not bitterness, not denial, but quiet acceptance. Because some stories don't need closure. They just need to be remembered for what they were, two souls crossing paths, changing each other's lives, and then moving forward. Even years from now, when people talk about Turkish television, their names will still come up, Can and Demet, the duo that turned fiction into reality and heartbreak into art. And though the cameras have stopped rolling, and their paths may never cross the same way again, the truth remains simple and eternal. They may not speak anymore, but their silence still says everything.